Welcome to the Strong Life Coach podcast, where we speak life, coach life, write life, and lead life. Today I have special guest, owner of Rizo Insurance Group, Fernie Rizo, in the house. Fernie, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Derek. Thanks so much for having me here, man. It's an honor.
Oh,
really
you know
is.
it. You know it. I'm glad to connect. I think people are going to be inspired by what you have to say. I believe every single person has a journey, but I can tell you, not every single person's journey gives me goosebumps. And I know yours did. So I'm excited for you to be able to share your story so people know the man behind the man, or
Yes,
the man
sir.
behind the business. And I think people are going to be able to tune in and hear great leadership principles to elevate them in their career, in their relationships, and even in providing services, even as business owners.
I appreciate that. That's my goal.
So I want to make sure people who are tuning in know you and a little bit about your background. So I'll go over your profile, and you correct me wherever I'm off. So you have experience as you're 7 years as in insurance thus
Yes,
far.
sir.
And before that, you had 13 years in the education system.
I did.
It was 10 years as a math teacher.
It was
Oh, okay.
high school math teacher.
But then on top of that, you had 4 years as an assistant football coach.
Yes. At the same time, I was teaching. I did some football coaching in high school
And then we have 6 years as a varsity head coach.
for girls basketball. That's correct.
And overall, you had 10 plus years of basketball coaching experience at the high school level. And then 3 years as an assistant principal.
Correct.
So what haven't you done?
I'm not in politics, that's for sure.
And then
Haven't tried that.
from an education perspective, you had your bachelor's degree from UTEP.
Go Miners.
Go Miners, represent. And then you said, no, that's not enough. I'm going for something more.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You said master's degree from New Mexico State.
Go Aggies.
All right.
The rival.
So, quite a profile. And on top of all of that, you are chapter president of Business Networking International, BNI.
Yes.
So you just stack up on the accolades and responsibilities.
I try to stay busy.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
My mom calls herself a chaos junkie. So you and her might
I'm
have.
pretty close.
You
Pretty
guys might be
close.
similar. And that's not even to talk about the basketball program, which I know we'll segue into a little bit later, that you do outside of your professional life.
Just staying busy.
And in your personal life, so married 12 years. Is that this month?
This month, Saturday.
Come on. Congratulations on hitting the dozen. Big deal.
Hey, it is. We're celebrating that in a pretty special way. So we're taking a trip for that one.
Okay. Well, you care to share where? Or
To Sin City.
Sin City? Okay.
Las Vegas.
Vegas.
Yes, we're
Vegas.
headed to Las Vegas. So
Well, I hope you all celebrate in a great way and are able to connect and have a great time, because 12 years, it is no small feat.
it's not, and we're looking forward to just a few days with each other. I think that you need that. Every relationship needs that. So we hit the big dozen, and we're celebrating in a pretty big way.
Okay. So then 12 years of marriage, 3 children. So your oldest is your daughter.
Yes.
And how old is she?
She's 19, gonna be 20 this December.
All right. And she has, so she's in college.
She is. She's HBU. She's playing college soccer.
So she got a scholarship for that.
She did.
All right. So again, all of these things speak to the leadership you provided in the household. Your example, your role model, serving and sacrificing. For everybody who knows, people make jokes about the soccer moms and soccer dads.
Correct.
So you've done this for years upon years upon years to help her to get to this level.
The soccer parenthood definitely paid off. 14 years of her traveling and playing soccer, and just the crazy schedule, and it paid off with a college scholarship to do what she loves.
Come on now. That's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
And then you have 2 other sons,
Yes, I do.
15-year-old and 13.
About to be. They're 14 and 12, and about to be this month 15 and 13. So
All right.
both teenagers. My 12-year-old's going to be an official teenager.
All right. Come on now. Progressing. So all you're doing, you're a family man. We want to make sure we understand the journey into it. So when did you first know that you were a leader?
Golly, man, that I'd have to go back almost 3 decades to being a high school freshman and mentor educator of mine by the name of Don Wooten seen something in me, and may he rest in peace. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. You know, I grew up in public housing, you know, so I grew up around the gangs and the drugs, and you know, had a father who was involved in those things, and Don for some reason saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and some other people did not, and got me involved in youth groups, drug prevention movement, some leadership roles in those type of organizations. And I have to say that was the first time that I started seeing something in myself that was leadership quality.
Come on. All right. So tell me more about these drug prevention programs. Like, what does that mean, or what took place?
So funny story. We started a group called Youth Impact, and Ms. Mesa, I'll never forget her. She was the mom of one of my best friends growing up, and she lived in public housing. She was my neighbor, and she called us Impacto Juvenil, which means youth impact in English.
All right.
And we started the group called Youth Impact, and went around the state. We were more like peer mentors, and we were talking against the drugs, the gangs, motivational speaking, but at the same time incorporating rap music into it. So
come on.
those were some fun days, man. Some fun days as the leader of Youth Impact.
So do people know that about you now? That you
I
had
don't
these,
think
these
so.
rap history days back in high school?
Yeah, no, those VHS tapes are saved pretty securely somewhere. Very few people do, but a lot of my high school friends remember that, because through high school, we even sang and rapped at some of the high school pep rallies.
Wow.
That was an adventure,
big
man.
Time, big time.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that somebody took the initiative to see you, to see the potential in you, and begin to cultivate that leadership from an early age to help you to begin to give back and help other people who were in need.
You know, Don took a big risk, and I think that's what educators do is we see something in kids that maybe they don't see in themselves, people don't see in them, and, you know, it opened up so many doors for me in the future. And I'd have to say that those days as a teenager is what led me to be who I am today.
Sure.
Really did.
Absolutely. And anybody from BNI who listens in, they're going to have to know this rap element of your life.
Yeah, that's true. They might make me rap a song here at one of the meetings.
I have to have you on another podcast because sometimes, I don't know about you, but some of the lyrics I remember learning like when I was like 8. Like I could still like recall and recite some of the, Coolio or whoever it was in 96. Can you still recite some of the, I mean, not right now on the air, but I mean in general, do you ever find yourself going throughout a day and going, hey, like these lyrics that we wrote and performed back then are still with me?
You know what's funny is we were in a hotel room at a basketball trip with some of my son's teammates, and they were freestyling, and they said, "Come on, Dad, you can freestyle." And I freestyled to some of the lyrics I used to sing to these.
Nice.
And they liked it, man. So I guess they're still pretty relevant 3 decades later.
Come on. Yeah. They didn't know those were rehearsed.
No, exactly. They didn't know I wrote them down, and I sang them for a lot of years. They thought it was really freestyle off the top of my head.
Well, good. I know I relate to somebody else taking an interest in me. And I just feel like there's always somebody. And I don't know if you know this, but when I was 17, my mom told me that my dad had committed suicide. And when that took place in my life, it is a sad, heartbreaking, soul-crushing story. But when I look back, there was always a father figure, some way, somehow, whether it was my coach, who I had on my podcast last week, my varsity coach from high school, or my grandpa, who's a big time father figure, or just other big brothers. But there's always been somebody along the way who saw potential in me. Even my first job at McDonald's, the general manager looked at me and asked me, I was like 14 years old, shouldn't even have been working there at that age, but he asked me if I could see myself as a manager, because he did. And I didn't become a manager at McDonald's, but I have this memory, 18, 19 years later, of somebody who saw potential in me, saw leadership potential. But it sounds like Don had that same vision for you, and it's amazing to see his legacy live on in you. I know he's passed, and I'm sorry to hear about his passing, but how his legacy lives on in you as you even contribute to the community, as you contribute to your clientele and building up your business.
You know, and I think Don had a big part to do in me wanting to become a teacher and a coach, is that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And what Don did for me, I wanted to do for kids, you know, and that's motivated me forever, really. I mean, for the last 30 years is what Don did for me to be able to do for somebody else. And Don, knowing that I didn't have that stable childhood at home, that I needed those father figures, and he was definitely one of the first that stepped up to be that for me. So you're absolutely right on that part.
And so when people are listening in or thinking about community impact, I mean, it could be to somebody, when you see somebody else, and they don't have to have this perfect background.
No.
They don't have to have the perfect household, but you just believe in them and invest in them, then that they can be your Don Wooten, right?
Yeah.
And they can be somebody that 20 years from now, you look back and are mentioned on a podcast in 20 years just because of believing in somebody else in the community and carrying on that legacy.
Yeah, that's crazy how that works.
So you went from high school in El Paso?
Yes, sir.
And then so after high school, you went directly to UTEP?
I did. Yeah, I did. The year right after graduation, Isleta High School, class of 94, once an Indian, always an Indian.
All right.
And went to UTEP, got accepted to Notre Dame University. But because of the events that were happening in my household and my parents were going through a divorce, I wasn't able to pursue that dream of being a fighting Irish. So I stayed home to study at home, and the plan was to study 2 years at UTEP and transfer to Notre Dame, transfer all my basics over there. But the turns of life and the direction life has for you just kind of kept me home and finished my degree there. Have no regrets about doing that. UTEP is a great school and got my bachelor's there in education. And a couple years later, got my master's degree in educational administration. I
do want to hear about the experience at UTEP because how did you develop your leadership while you were at UTEP?
Man, that's a good one. I got recruited into a fraternal organization, and you know, most people think fraternities are party crews and you pay for your friends, and you know, that's not what it was. It was an organization on campus, and I didn't have any brothers, any blood brothers. I have 2 sisters, but I didn't have any brothers. So to me, it was about the relationship, about being able to have brothers, you know, and to this day, I still cherish those brotherhoods. We still talk. We still have a fantasy football league together, you know, things like that. But when I was a junior, I got elected as vice president.
Wow.
And it was you were automatically going to be graduating into president a year later. So that said a lot for what my brothers thought of me, being able to be elected vice president and be able to transition into presidency my senior year of college, to be able to lead them. That said a lot for their opinion of me and my leadership skills.
And they say, like, one of the most difficult and challenging components of leadership is leading volunteers.
Yes.
People that aren't paid to follow you, or they're not forced. So, like, in some ways, a teacher has students that while they're in the classroom, and in some ways, they're not paid to follow, but they're expected and required to follow the direction that the teacher is providing. Or in a corporate environment, when I have direct reports, people that report to me, in some ways, their paycheck depends on them following my direction.
Correct.
But in this fraternity situation, these people aren't paid to follow you. They're not even, but just the idea that what they saw in you in your junior year of college, that this is the guy we want, the leader of this whole organization, as a senior.
Correct.
So yeah, it just speaks volumes about your influence and your impact in those relationships.
They were actually paying their dues, right?
Paying,
the membership dues.
Right.
So it was the opposite. And being elected as a leader, it's not something I took lightly in that fraternity. It was. I served for a year, and it was, one of the best years of my life, and taught me a lot. Like you said, as far as leading an organization of adults, of peers, of colleagues into goals, helping them achieve goals. You know.
And even I think learning to motivate in that space, and when I think about even what you're doing right now with BNI, and I know we're going to come back to it, But it is a cool little mirror where the presidency role, it wasn't like a brand new thing for BNI. People had believed in you in the past and had put you in this position before in college, and then it's no surprise that later on you were given these same opportunities to lead, even our chapter of BNI.
That's correct. Omega Delta Phi taught me that I could do it, that I had it in me, that it wasn't as hard as it's made out to be, and as much as you're going to invest time and energy in it, that I had the qualities to be able to lead an organization of adults, So that taught me I could do it.
Yes.
Kind of cemented what Don had seen in me years before that.
Yes. Spot on. So we go from UTEP, and then where does your journey go?
I graduated from UTEP. I became a high school math teacher, freshman football assistant coach, freshman basketball assistant coach, and did that for a few years and realized I wasn't fulfilled, that I wanted to be an administrator, wanted to lead a school district eventually. So it kind of led me to get my master's degree while Veronica and I met, and I was going to class at the rival university, which is about 55 minutes away from UTEP, but took some weekend college classes and got my master's degree in 2006.
Nice. Congratulations there.
Yeah, thank you. And that led me to, I kept coaching, I kept teaching. My passion was still in teaching and coaching. But 4 years after getting the master's, I decided that I wanted to raise the family in San Antonio.
Okay, big change. Was there a big motivation? That
Yeah, my sister graduated from St. Mary's University, my little
okay.
sister. So, when she was coming to college in San Antonio, I was dating my wife, and we'd bring her every semester to move in. And this was a great place to obviously vacation. So we were tourists at the time.
Sure.
But I was like, this is not a bad place, And I spent 4 years bringing her, picking her up, when semester was over, and just kind of pretty much fell in love with the city.
All right.
And knew that this, even from those years, from 2000 to 2005 when she came to school here, I kind of knew this is kind of where I wanted to be.
Nice.
And that's really 5 years later what kind of led me to want to be here. Now, ironically, one of my, friends that I went to graduate school with ended up moving here to San Antonio to be an assistant principal immediately after getting his master's degree. So when we would visit and vacation here, he's the one that kind of encouraged me to, interview, and there was a bigger world out there than just what I was doing as a teacher and a coach. And he was a big part in helping me, move here, because he was already experiencing the success as an administrator for one of the school districts here in San Antonio.
Wow. Now, was it a difficult decision to go from that teacher coach role where everything was familiar, you've been doing it for 10 years, into that administrative role, which not only is it different, but you're changing. I mean, you're 8 hours driving distance, from San Antonio to El Paso.
I think I was ready. I think that's what made it easy. I had a supportive wife. I still remember her asking me, very smart. But I remember her still asking me, are we ready? Are we ready to make the move? We're moving 600 miles away. All our family, everything we knew was in El Paso. And I told her no. I said, we're not ready. I said, and I don't know if there'll ever be a time we'll be ready, but this is the time to do it. And I think that's where a lot of people not fail, that's the wrong word, but where they hesitate too much to be able to take that leap of faith of something's telling me that this is what I need to do.
Right.
And we made the move. We made the move that summer. We moved from El Paso to San Antonio and haven't looked back since.
Come on. And I think you're spot on saying that there's an obstacle in people's growth, in their development, that they allow, well, I'm not ready yet, I don't feel confident yet. But there's two quotes that came to me. There's this quote that says, build your wings on the way down. Like, leap, just jump, just get out there. And as you're falling, build those wings and get them ready to fly. But if you wait till my wings are built before I jump, then sometimes those wings are never ready. Yeah. But something about leaping, like you said, forces me and creates me to go, all right, I have deadlines, I this has to work. All right, this other line I heard is, I got to make it or I got to make it. And there's no other
in between.
Right, there's nothing else.
In between.
And no plan B. But I think there's something about that. Another line I think that is like, do it afraid. Don't wait. Don't wait till you're confident. Don't wait till there's no insecurities, there's no worries, there's no fears. That day may never come, but to take that leap is huge. So let's talk about your role as the administrator. So you stepped into the assistant principal role, which you held for 3 years.
Correct.
Let's talk about the rewards first of that role, and then we'll talk about the challenge. What was rewarding about that role?
Doing for kids what Don had did for me, what my high school football coaches had done for me.
Yes.
Playing football was my gang in high school. That's the way I stayed off the streets. That's the Friday night thrills were my way of just, letting out my frustration, my stress of having to grow up as a kid in a low socioeconomic community. I wanted to be that person for these kids. As an administrator, it became challenging because you're the disciplinarian. So you're no longer that guy that everybody likes.
Right.
You're that guy that all the students dislike.
Right.
Because you're the hammer.
You're associated with trouble. Like, oh, I'm
you
in
are.
trouble.
You are. As an assistant principal, you're the primary disciplinarian. You're the one that intervenes between the teacher and the student when the student is misbehaving. But at the same time, I took the approach of, I'm going to be the mentor to these kids. Why are they getting in trouble? What is it? What structure are they lacking? What can I provide? What can my campus provide for these kids? So those were the rewards. The challenges were that they were leaving the campus and going back to the same environment. So the next day, we were back to square one.
Oh.
The conversation we had was in one ear, out the other, because I couldn't change the actual environment.
Right.
I couldn't change the community, and that's where you start juggling as an educator, as a teacher, as an administrator, is how do you go to bed at night knowing that some things are out of your control. Some things are you can only do so much.
Right.
Your hands are tied at a certain point.
Sure.
Would
you say, how much time would you say you were spending on putting out fires in that administrative role?
Your goal when you become an administrator as an educator is to be an instructional leader, to be able to help kids succeed in the classroom, help teachers become better teachers. And I'd say that I was spending 5% of my time doing the 95% of the instructional leadership, but 95% of my time on 5% of the kids. 95% of my time on discipline, on those things. And that's where it became a challenge, is how do you juggle between the two? Besides having to turn off my radio while I was doing a classroom observation, and then coming out of the classroom observation, having another one scheduled, but now I have a student waiting for me in my office because during the 45 minutes I was observing, the student was getting in trouble, So that was a big challenge there, is how to juggle between being the instructional leader, which is ideally why you become a school administrator, to having to spend time on being a disciplinarian.
Right. And I think any leader out there probably can relate to the frustration of feeling like, how am I spending so much time with the most problematic people? And not that the problematic people don't need any attention, but we probably never want to be in a situation where where there's not investment for those children that are the top performers. How do we help them to get better? Or those middle performers, how we help those middle performers to get to the top? But when so much time we can feel like in a leadership role is spent with people who, well, again, whether it's discipline or it can be frustrating and draining. A lot of my energies are spent with people who are draining my energy because of attitudes or because of poor decisions or because of write-ups or meetings. In the corporate world, it was when it was such a structured environment that for me to like terminating somebody, I felt like you had to, paperwork after paperwork, meetings, clarifications, inspections, and all of these just to get somebody terminated. Not that that's what you want to do.
Correct.
But if somebody's like if they're avoiding their job, or if they're even in the operations if they're neglecting the customers,
Yes.
and if they're disrespecting their peers, then or if they're just not showing up. Like those are all like things you go, okay, these are basic fundamentals of having a job, and you're not doing it. But it still took so much to so much time in the leadership role is spent taking care of these, for lack of a better phrase, bottom performers.
And I think that's the challenge as educators that educators have nowadays. A school campus is a microcosm of corporate America,
Oh,
right?
wow.
It's the students who are always absent. Those are your employees who are always calling in sick, right? Your students who don't turn in homework. Those are your employees who want to get the paycheck but don't want to put in the work.
Wow.
Your top performers, your straight A students, those are your top performers who you unintentionally decline to pay attention to.
That's right.
And they feel left out. They feel like, golly, the teacher doesn't pay attention to me and I'm the
Right.
best student in the class.
Right.
And it's because you know that they're going to do what they need to do.
Exactly.
Because they have the structure. They have the outside influences that are motivating them to be that person. But when I left education, I was like, corporate America is just a big school campus.
Well, everything you've said about it thus far, I'm like, yep, that's my experience.
You know,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's what's helped me be successful and helped me understand that I this was my calling. Is that the 13 years I spent in education were preparing me for what really the real quote unquote world is out there.
Yes. So then you went from 3 years in the administrative role as an assistant principal, or you said or as a vice principal.
Either one.
So as a vice principal, and then what happened in that transition? Like when did you know? All right, I need to make this change because we see not the fit. We see where you are now, you know, in insurance, and we see where you were then. So what happened between now and then?
It wasn't that I was ready. I didn't know there was something else out there. My goal was to get a doctorate degree and become a superintendent of schools. That was the culmination of my career in education. But suddenly one summer, so I moved to San Antonio. I'm an assistant principal. I'm working 12-hour days, 70-hour weeks. You know, my kids are small. We hired a nanny to pick them up from school, feed them, take them to t-ball practice, basketball practice, football practice. And I'm like, well, a lot of expenses involved in having kids, right?
Sure.
And I'm working from 7 to 7 and sometimes from 7 to 9, and I'm working weekends, and I have duty at a football game, volleyball game, basketball game. I have a disciplinary file I have to get turned in by tomorrow morning, so I'm working till 10 at night. I wasn't looking. That was the reality of the profession, and it was what I wanted to do. But suddenly, the summer after my first year as an administrator, I had a recruiter for a captive insurance agency look me up on one of the social media sites. Said she had done some research and, you know, I had an impressive resume and she wanted to talk to me. But she was in El Paso, so she was under the impression I was still in El Paso. But that summer of 2011, the year after we had moved to San Antonio, mind you, I had already been an administrator for 1 year. And ironically, I had just been moved campuses. After 1 year, I received a call from the superintendent's office saying, hey, great job, but we're going to move you to another campus. So I was like, wow, there's a lot of movement here in education. And she looked me up. I met with her that summer. I went back to El Paso that summer. We went as a family to visit because all our family was still there. And just in talking to her, I didn't know there was another world out there. All I knew was education. All I knew I ever wanted to do was educate, be a teacher, be a coach, be to kids what my mentors were to me. But I was like, well, there's a way to still impact people, to still do for them what I'm doing for kids. Have more flexibility, buy back my time, raise my own kids, and make money while doing it. Let me start doing some research. Why not? You know, and, you know, where did this recruiter come from? And it just, you know, nothing happens by accident, you know? So I started doing some research for about 1.5 years. into the insurance industry. This captive company, I did some research on them.
And for people who don't know what captive, that's like an exclusive agent, so they can't sell anything but their own product.
Their own product. So their products are proprietary. You only sell their product, and you can only place, one product, one price, pretty much. So I did some research, and it was exactly what I was doing now. It was being passionate about educating. But now it was educating people on insurance, on gaps, on coverage, on what you needed, right? Making an impact, right? Being that person that they look to for their needs, for protection, to protect their needs. So it was technically a little culmination of education. It was like, I'm still going to be doing something similar, just on a grander scheme of things. So, 2012, I decided to, again, take a leap of faith. I'm all about leaps of faith.
Leaps. Okay, you're speaking
leaps.
Speaking my language.
I had already grown some wings in 2010.
All right.
Like you said, I like your analogy because, as I fell and I fell and I fell as an administrator, those wings, and first time I'd ever heard that, but it's making sense. Those wings is what helped me get to the top.
Yes.
Get higher, not fall flat on my face. And I took another leap of faith. And 7 years later, here we are. Right. Now we're in the insurance industry. Now
let's in that transition. I mean, and I know because I'm married. And at the transition, what was the conversation like with in your marriage about changing? Because in some ways, the vice principal, there's prestige.
Yes.
There's honor. What was that conversation like in that transition? Like, what was that conversation like in your marriage?
Tough. Tough. I'd have to say. I went through the conversation. Well, it all started with, me getting on the LinkedIn profile and reading the message to my wife. And the first thing she said to me was, "You sell insurance?"
Wow.
And I was like, why not? Right? Why not? Why not me? But that was her question. You sell insurance? And when I finally decided that it was time, it was one of the toughest conversations I've had to have with my wife because I went 4 years to UTEP to be a teacher. I went 2.5 years to New Mexico State to be an administrator.
Yes.
6.5 years of education, 13 years of my life spent in education to all of a sudden do something that's not guaranteed.
Right.
I don't have the stable paycheck coming in every last day of the month. And just letting her know that I needed her support through this venture was trying. It was a trying time in our marriage. It really was. Even the 5 years that I was an exclusive captive agent was a trying time in our marriage because I hadn't made it yet. So was it the right decision I had made?
Right.
So I'd have to say that it's been the toughest conversation I've ever had with my wife. And I went through it in my head multiple times, and I had to speak from the heart and tell her that as happy as I was, as satisfied as I was being in education, as much as I loved what I was doing, there was a sense of lack of fulfillment for me.
I like that delineation because you clarify between I could be happy somewhere, doesn't mean I'm fulfilled.
Correct.
And I guess as a speaker and as a motivator, even as a writer, I try to help people to understand they could be happy anywhere. Yeah. Happiness could be anywhere. Joy could be anywhere. Poorest kid in the poorest country, I believe they could find joy.
Absolutely.
Now, fulfillment is another level, but I think everybody can relate to the stress that can come with a big career change.
Oh yeah.
I know my wife and I had the conversation when we were first discussing, the insurance industry was where I was. I was working at Nationwide. It's been good to me. Help pay for education, and they were paying for me to continue into my master's program that I was doing, and what happened with me was I had applied for a lateral role in the company, and then a week later they announced that my current role was being eliminated. Now, so that put us in an interesting situation: is do I continue after that other role, or do I allow this elimination of my role to be a platform for me to jump off into my own business, to do speaking, coaching, podcasting, And we were, worried. I probably had more fear than she did, as far as making the change, because this is so comfortable. This is what I've known.
Yeah, correct.
But ultimately asking myself about calling, like you said, I think I heard a definition the other day that said calling is a purpose with a divine touch.
There you go.
And that speaks to your journey of what you are able to do now to help people. Because you were helping people before,
yes,
as an administrator, and now you're helping people as well.
Yes.
But then now to your vision of, I don't want to have to pay for other people to raise my children, like the nanny.
Yeah.
I want to be involved at the ground level, helping to raise my children.
And I think you said the word comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was comfortable.
Right.
This is what I knew. Waking up at a certain time, getting to the office at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to have the disciplinary problems. I knew which kids they were. I knew the teachers. It was comfort. It was I mean, I didn't have a lot of summer vacation, but the 3 weeks off in the summer, it was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It was comfortable,
Sure.
right? The 1 week off during Thanksgiving, the 2 weeks off during Christmas. It was in fulfillment. And, our educators, there's a special place for them,
Yes.
because I was raising 900 kids, because you're not just a teacher. You're not just an educator. You're not just an administrator. You're a mentor. You're a peer to them.
Counselor,
right? A counselor,
coach.
You're everything.
Mm-hmm.
You're coaching them. They spend a lot more time with you sometimes on campus
Yes.
than they do with their own families at home.
Spot on.
But at the end of the day, I said, I have my own 3. My kids at the time were 4, 6, and 11. And I said, do I spend 70 hours a week raising somebody else's kids, or is there something out there for me where I can be fulfilled, still help people, still make money, but also raise my own children? And it was a tough decision, man. It was a tough decision, because at the end of ultimately that was the goal.
Right.
Is not having regrets when my kids were older, knowing that, hey, I could have done more for them,
Right.
but I was so consumed in my career that I failed them in some things. It's a challenge. It's a challenge that everybody faces in corporate America.
Right.
I think that every educator faces, that any employee faces.
Right. It's fascinating you bring up that everybody faces it, because I know the leap that I did, and I hear the leap that you did, but I still feel hesitant to give people the advice to leap and do it, because there's so much risk involved. There's finances involved. There's relationships that can be strained because of this leap. So it's not, I almost never want to be responsible for somebody
Correct.
else's. Hey, you got to decide that for you. Hey, you pray on that, think about it, map it out, pros and cons. But it has forced me to grow in ways that I couldn't even imagine. I mean, even podcasting right now. So I'm not an expert podcaster. This is episode 16, but I'm having the time of my life. Like the conversation we were able to have before the recording, and then to connect with you now, I'm asking, in what world would I have connected with Fernie Rizo if I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now?
Exactly.
And
same thing here. In what world would I be sharing my story with the world in front of Derek Guajardo if it wasn't the leap of faith I took?
Right.
But you're right, it's not for everybody, man, because there's so many risks involved, and I think the spousal support I had through the journey was the main thing for me.
Yes.
I think if I wouldn't have had that, I would have fallen flat on my face. The wings wouldn't have worked. So I owe Veronica everything for this journey, man.
Oh, Veronica.
I really
Veronica,
do.
when you hear this, well done, Veronica.
Absolutely. And that's why we're celebrating our dozen anniversary.
That's the reason for it. And
she deserves it, man.
Come on,
she deserves
that's
it.
right. Now, so you jump into the insurance industry, and what would you say is the most rewarding part of being a business owner?
I think more than being a business owner, I don't think that's the rewarding part. I think that's the challenging part, is having the business acumen to now run your business and deal with all the things that have nothing to do with what you actually do. I think the rewarding part is being an insurance agent. Okay. I don't think it's the business owner. So I didn't get out of education to own a business. I got out of education to be an insurance agent, which to me, there's a difference, because the rewarding part of being an insurance agent is being the person that gives people peace of mind
Yes.
with protecting their assets. The trust that I build with my customers, that's what the rewarding part is. That's how I can go to bed at night, is that, yes, maybe I saved them money. You know, that's always rewarding, is knowing that you're the guy that allowed them to manage their budget better.
Right.
Because now they have extra money in their budget to be able to go to the movies, which they haven't been able to do, to be able to go buy a new car because they didn't know that the insurance could be more affordable. I'm the guy that in their daily life, you know, I might be responsible for their peace of mind. And also probably the guy that they'll call on their worst day.
Whoa.
When they have a wreck, when they have a blowout tire, when their house catches on fire, like mine did in 2013.
Whoa.
You know? Yeah.
What happened, or what was that like?
You know, I wasn't an insurance agent yet. I was still in the research process. I was still studying to be an insurance agent. I did a lot of studying of the regulations and the insurance industry. So in 13, I'm still not an agent. It's July 4th of 2013, and my mom's over for the summer, and we're in the backyard grilling, and I've had this grill for 6 years, and it's up against the patio wall, and the kids are in the backyard running around the sprinkler, you know, and just kind of doing July 4th stuff.
Sure.
The grill catches on fire, but I think it's the grease. No big deal. Grease fire, you know, put it out with whatever. It was the tank. And before you know it, propane tank. Oof. And I couldn't put it out on time to where the line blew with all the pressure, blew through my walls, got the fire in between the two floors. And the fire marshal says, if you don't call us when you do, and we show up 5 minutes later, your house burns to the ground, because the fire was already in the insulation between the walls.
Oh, man.
That night, as I'm, you know, I talked to you about leap of faith and divine intervention. What I learned through this process was, it's not about the money I'm going to make as an insurance agent. It's what my insurance agent did for me.
Yes.
The fact that I had his cell phone number, it's July 4th, he's having a great time with his family. True. I leave him a voicemail, and he returns my call on a holiday when he's off, and guides me through the process of what's to come, and makes me feel at ease to the point where I can put my arm around my wife while she's watching her house burn down, kiss her on the cheek and say, everything's going to be okay. Wow. He gave me the comfort to be able to tell her that. That's where I realized this is not about the flexibility. This is not about the money you're going to make. This is about being that person that people can count on the worst days of their life. Because it's not about selling a policy, walking away and saying, here's the 1-800 number, and if they close at 5 on a Friday, but your house burns on Saturday, good luck, find me Monday.
Right.
That's not who we are, you know, and that experience taught me that.
And I know from you is you've prioritized being accessible in your business, so that when you have your clients on their worst day, as you described, they're able to contact you directly. They
are. I'd say, if not all, most of our clients have my cell phone number on their business card, because I know and I trust that they're not going to call my cell phone to bother me, that it's going to be something that they need. And we want to be that agency that is accessible. You said it. You know, it's not about, oh, we sold you a policy. Now call the 1-800 number. It's, hey, we're here. We're your agent. We are your representative.
Yes.
Call us before you call the company. We'll guide you through the process, like my agent did me, because of course, the company I was with at the time, they were closed on July 4th. Most people are. A lot of carriers don't have 24/7 hotlines, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what we pride ourselves on.
Yes.
That's what distinguishes us from a lot of companies,
Mm-hmm.
is the accessibility that customers can have to us on a Sunday, on a Saturday, on a holiday,
Mm-hmm.
because I went through it.
Right.
And I think you have to go through it to understand why it's important for them to have accessibility to you. Because if I don't have my agent's cell phone number that night, I'm not sure I can put my arm around my wife and tell her everything's going to be okay, because I'm not
Sure.
sure everything's going to be okay.
That's right.
You know?
Yes. So it sounds, from the way you're building your business, in the independent space, you're able to help people from a financial standpoint, to help people to have a variety of options for their insurance needs, are able to go to you. But then also from an experience standpoint, so it's one thing to have the financial side, but then the experience you deliver is an experience that is accessible, and you know what it's like to have the worst loss at your home, right?
Yes.
I mean, my wife and I tease, but the couch over there, she has an emotional connection with that couch.
Yeah.
It was the first couch she ever bought as a college student. Didn't have a lot of money. She paid good money for that couch, and it means a lot to her. But when somebody's house burns down, it's not just property.
No.
There's so much connection emotionally to anything that can be lost. People feel the same way about their cars, or in a variety of things that they can lose that insurance helps to cover. But you get a chance to serve the community by helping to be a voice of reassurance, as you said, during the worst moments.
That's what it is. You said it, reassurance, because there's so many carriers out there. There's so many companies. We are blessed to have access to multiple carriers.
Mm-hmm.
So Rizo Insurance Group, I mean, that is my last name.
Right.
But when I started, I said it has to stand for something.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be Fernie Rizzo's company. And the acronym we use for Rizo is we relate. R is for relate. We relate to our customers.
Yes.
We are a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
We pay premiums.
Mm-hmm.
We had the fire loss.
Yes.
I is the second name, but we inform them. We educate them. So
Yes.
to me, inform is a synonym to educate. We want to inform them of their gaps, of what they need, of what will happen if they don't have the coverage. Maybe you cannot afford it at this time, but we want to inform you that when you can, this is what this coverage can do for you.
Yes.
Just know that if something happens in the meantime, you're not going to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
The Z is for zeal, and I think that's what's missing in a lot of insurance companies is, to me, zeal is passion.
Yes.
It's passion and devotion. Not only passion and devotion to do the right thing for the customer, but passion and devotion to the industry, to protect the industry. The industry has a bad name a lot of times because premiums go up, because claims are not covered. To have that devotion to the industry, to be able to earn that respect for the insurance industry with our customers, but at the same time have the zeal for our customers, to be able to make that connection, that relationship. Yes. I'm your agent, but I need to build that relationship between you and the carrier I'm placing you with. And the O is for options. So R-I-Z-O, the O is for options. We want to make sure that I don't shove a price and a product down your throat because I need you to do business with me, that I give you the option, that I have options for you, and I'm going to place you with something that's in your budget, something that fits your needs. It's wonderful to be able to run through a quote and know that I have options of where to place my customer and find the right fit for them.
Yes.
So R-I-Z-O.
I like it.
It's
Relate.
people think it's our last name, but relate, inform, do it with zeal, options.
Options. All right. I like it. So if they're tuning in, it's a good acronym to memorize right there. Rizo Insurance Group. Know what it stands for. All right. So let's talk about how you've continued to grow in your leadership journey.
BNI.
BNI, Business
BNI.
Network International. Tell us
Business
about it.
Network International. It's a global organization around the world. That's what global means. With thousands of chapters, over 160,000 members.
Yes.
Business professionals. That's what we are. And you know, when I was asked to be one of the charter members of a new chapter here in town, and it's so funny that when we were ready to launch, I was asked to be on the leadership team. There's only 3 leadership roles: president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. And I was asked to be vice president. And then 6 months later, I was asked to be president. And I'm like, there's got to be something about me that encourages people to keep asking me to be in these leadership positions.
That's right.
Well, there's no reason that business professionals really need to show up to a meeting every Thursday and listen to what I have to say, or listen to me run the meeting, but it's the motivation. The motivation that I have. I only accept leadership positions if I believe in the mission, if I believe in what I'm doing. And every Thursday when we show up to our meeting, I believe in what BNI has done for my business, and what it can do for the businesses of other business owners. And that's how you and I met. So, you know, I'm so glad to be president, and I grow, right? Because now I'm in a group with business professionals, but I'm the one that has to hold people accountable for things getting done in that chapter. But I'm nobody to them, nobody to me besides friends. We're friends. We're peers. We're colleagues. So how do you get people motivated? And at the end of every meeting, we give a quote. And I kind of take the pulse of the group, and that's how I choose my quote. What's the pulse this week? And we're gonna share that quote. You know, we're gonna share a quote that I find, whether it's perseverance, whether it's leadership, whether it's struggle, whether it's growth. What is it that our group needs this week? And we're gonna find a quote that relates to them, and let them go home, because that's the last part of the meeting, and let something resonate to them to help them want to come back the following Thursday.
Hey,
you know,
hey, build your wings on the way down.
You said it, and I'm gonna remember that.
No, and it's been a phenomenal group thus far, and I've been connected for all of whatever. I think I got initiated 13 days ago.
Inducted.
Yeah,
there's no initiation. There's induction.
Inducted. So, but what I appreciate about it is the accountability.
Yes.
Because we're together, but then the accountability where each person goes around and says, here's how I contributed to my colleagues this week. And I think this past meeting, you called it the I have portion.
Yes.
It's I have a referral for somebody else, or I have a visitor who can come to this group and add value to this group if they place membership, or I have a story that really connected with me from connection from being a part of this group, a testimony of what you've done business with a member in the group. And you want to give a testimonial so that people know what great of a job that member is doing with their business, or also a testimonial on what BNI has done for your business. So yeah, we call it the I have, and every week you have to tell us what you have. You know, we don't let you off the hook. We don't let you stand up and say, I don't have anything this week. You have something. You have either a testimonial of what BNI has done for you and your business, or you have a testimonial on something that a member did for you, you know, in terms of their product, their service, maybe something they did on the outside, you know, while you were having a one-to-one conversation with them. So very passionate about that group. It's been an honor, a privilege to have been vice president and president. And it just pretty much, going back to your question, it's helped my growth, and it's helped my growth in my business as far as leadership. There's a sense of humility. You talked about business owner. What's the reward? What's the challenge? The challenge is how do you grow, right? How do you grow as a business owner? And I think there has to be a sense of humility that you can't do everything on your own. And now you become a leader because employees or independent contractors that come on board with me, they want to be treated right. They don't want to be micromanaged, and it teaches you a sense of humility. You got to be able to trust that people are going to get the work done, you know, and BNI has taught me that while I'm away at these meetings, or I'm away doing one-to-one conversations, that I have to be able to trust that the business is still getting taken care of in the office. The business is still getting taken care of by my producers, you know, by my partners in the business. So, you know, it's an ongoing endeavor, you know. I heard a quote that said, people are successful if a lot of other people want them to be. And I feel like that captures the group, is we want to be successful. We want other people to be successful. We want what's best for one another, to help each other to grow and to blossom and to have greater connections, and exposing our personal network to the group. Because just like we know from a team concept, we can do more together than we can apart.
And you know, BNI's motto is givers gain.
Yes.
And I took that motto to my personal life, and I took that motto to my own business. If I give of myself, if I give business to others, if I give of myself to people, in return, they're going to want to do business with me. And in return, they're going to want to give of themselves to me.
Yes.
So it's not gainers give, it's givers gain. First, you got to be a servant.
That's right.
And, you know, when I got my master's degree and I was getting into administration, we studied about all the different types of leadership. And I was attracted to the servant leadership.
Yes.
And I think servant leadership is so important, and it gets lost in wanting to make money, in wanting to be your own boss, in wanting to have the flexibility.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, the only way you'll be successful and grow a business and grow a group like BNI is to be a servant leader.
Yes.
I don't show up to BNI every Thursday to expect referrals. Hey, do y'all have business for me this week? It's not what it is. I'm there to help their businesses grow. If I can help the members of my group grow their business, in return, they're going to help me grow my business. So that giver's gain philosophy, it's huge, man. And I think it's something that Dr. Ivan Meissner, when he founded BNI, he's a genius, because I think that's a philosophy we can all apply to our lives.
Spot on.
Day in, day out.
I tell you, last week when I was in the meeting and I said during my little 45 second, marketing, opening.
Your ask.
Right, my ask. I was like, you know what you just said, servant leadership, how can I serve the group? And so if any of the leaders or the business owners are looking for additional exposure on my platform, we've reached, at that point we had reached, I think, 2,000 people the last week, and then 3.6 thousand people over it took 28 days. And I just figured, why not give that away? Because again, the philosophy is givers gain. So let me just serve the people in the group. That'll give them an opportunity to know me, what I'm about, get a chance to come over, connect. But servant leadership is also my favorite. Favorite form of leadership. Let me show up to serve and not look to how other people can serve me.
Correct. Perfect. If you follow that philosophy, and there's other types of leadership that are successful, but for me, that's the one that's worked. And I think I can't be somebody I'm not. So that's what fits me. And I think every leader needs to find the type of leadership that fits their style. Don't be who you're not. Don't try to be who you're not. Just be who you are.
Right. Great advice. So I know we're bringing it in for a cap. So I do have to ask you kind of an unrelated question. Who do you have that's going to go further? Clippers, Lakers. Who's going to be more successful in the playoffs in 2020?
Los Angeles Clippers, man.
The Clippers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hands down.
No question. No hesitation.
No hesitation whatsoever.
Okay. So is that because of Kawhi, or is that just?
Well, first of all, I despise the Lakers.
Okay.
But I'm not speaking emotionally, because that can get you in trouble when you think with emotions.
Right.
But I'll take Doc Rivers over Frank Vogel any day of the week. We talked about leadership. And I will take Kawhi Leonard over LeBron James any day of the week. What Kawhi did in Toronto is amazing. To take that group over the top that had been so close years before. And don't forget what the Clippers did last year with Lou Williams, with a supporting cast, Patrick Beverly. They went 4-2 against the Warriors in round one. And all they needed was to add those key pieces, where the Lakers, they're farther away than the Clippers were last year. So I know Anthony Davis, LeBron James, everybody's giving them a lot of credit, but there's more to just adding two talented players.
Right.
The chemistry has to be there. The leadership has to be there. Doc Rivers has won a championship, and he did it in 2008 through helping Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce understand that the only way they were going to reach the team goal and the ultimate goal was to give up of themselves, sacrifice some sort of selfishness to be able to reach the ultimate goal. So I just believe in Doc Rivers more than I do Frank Vogel, to be honest with you.
There we go.
So I'm calling it now.
Fair enough.
I'm calling it. I won't be surprised if the Clippers win it all.
So the last guy asked this, I think it was last Thursday, and we made a gentleman's bet on dinner. So I took Lakers.
Okay.
He took Clippers. So I'll make the same deal with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
I'm calling it now. So.
All right.
And I want a fancy restaurant.
So the last thing we'll do is, for all that you do as a business owner in the insurance industry with Rizo Insurance Group, and then as the chapter president for BNI, and then you're raising your family, what people may not know yet is you also have a basketball program that you run. So people will have to tune in for the next episode to get the full in-depth analysis as far as what you do and your passion behind it, your inspiration behind it. But if you're going to give people a 60-second idea of what you do with that program, what would you say?
Man, I spend as much time on that as I do my own business, to be honest with you, because we talked about passion, servant leadership, and my 2 boys want to play at the next level, my 2 sons. So I started my own organization to do that. And, what I'm going to say to wrap it up is, the goal is to help these kids achieve their dreams. It's my way of, when people ask me, do you miss education? My answer is always no, because I have this group of kids that I coach, and I spend sometimes, some weeks I spend more time on that than I do my own business, but it's because of the passion behind it, and I'm talking about hours, actual physical hours. But yeah, it's I'm excited about the next podcast because we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's what I'm passionate about. It's what I'm passionate about. It's my way of still being in the education field outside of the education field, is being able to still be a role model and mentor to these kids and helping them grow, not only in basketball, but in life, because I think sports teaches something about life,
Completely.
That intangible characteristics that kids will only realize as they get older.
Yes. So we are here in the Strong Life Coach podcast, where we speak life, coach life, write life, and lead life with Fernie Rizo of Rizo Insurance Group. And he has a basketball program that you'll have to tune in next time to hear more about. So be sure to like the podcast, rate it well, give us a positive comment, and share it. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate your time, sir. Absolutely. Thank you very much.